This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast.
It's time to talk draft. He's Greg, I'm Nick. This episode of the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston and claim your $200 bonus. Also, Indeed.com/Bedard. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Well, Greg, the Patriots were very, very busy during draft weekend. I don't know how many of us expected or anticipated them drafting 12 guys, but that's exactly what they did. They drafted 12 dudes. The only move up was up the board for kicker Chad Ryland, which we'll get into, but let's go pick by pick. Starting with Christian Gonzalez, 17th overall. They moved down from 14 to 17, and they picked the Oregon cornerback.
Yeah, we talked about that pick a lot last week. I really like the pick. I mean, as long as the Patriots are, correct sort of in their pre-draft analysis of a lot of the stuff we talked about with Gonzalez. I mean, the physical skills in the film are there. He has anything you see there, what you can see, he has the potential to be a number one lockdown cornerback. But a lot of things with those guys. I mean, for example, look at Jeff Okudah with the Lions, who Matt Patricia drafted, I think, 3rd overall, who just washed out with that team. It's about the internal makeup. And, I know that there are teams that question whether he has, the mental toughness, the attitude, the alpha stuff. Like, does he have enough of that stuff to be that player? Obviously the Patriots think he does, and I'm not going to second guess that. I mean, I think given what we know, the weaknesses on the team, I think that was definitely worth whatever roll the dice that they did.
Yeah, I thought it was a home run pick. You don't know how any of these guys are going to work out. We could say that for a lot of different players. We've had players that have seemed to be safe picks, and they end up not being good picks. We have, picks that might be flyers that end up working out. You really don't know. The draft, as they say, it's cliche, but it's true. It's an inexact science. I do like the idea that they have Adrian Clem on this staff, a guy who should have some inside information on Gonzalez and what makes him tick. So I thought it was a home run pick from what we know. Round 2. Now, we thought the Patriots might move up in round 2 to start day 2, but they did not. They decided to stick and pick at 46, and they drafted Georgia Tech edge Keion White, Greg.
Yeah, this is where things start to get a little bit dicey for me. Keion White is a good prospect for them on paper. He checks a lot of the boxes, quote unquote, that they look for. I have questions about whether they should be looking for those things anymore. If that led you to Ty Warren in 2003, should you be looking for the same thing in 2023? I have questions about that. I think White is fine. I think he'll play in the league a long time. I think he's a good player. I just don't like how in the second round you're getting a guy who's not really an edge player. He's not really an internal guy. He's a swing guy. And given what the Patriots have on their roster and how they view certain people, like basically Keion White's a Dietrich Wise replacement. If you could tell me today that Keion White has the ability or the chance to come in and displace Dietrich Wise and be the starter within the next year and a half, then I'd be like, okay, I'm on board, because I've been trying to upgrade that spot forever. I just have my doubts whether that's going to happen. So now we get into, how long. I think a lot of these picks from here on out are backup replacement, way down the line stuff where I think they should have been swinging a little bit more.
It all depends on how they see him. He has athleticism. He has power. He is, as you said, like if you were going to build a Madden player and his frame and all of that, Keion White fits the description. He was a tight end, started at Old Dominion, and then moved on to Georgia Tech. He's an older guy who they drafted, which was another theme in this draft. They tend to draft guys that are a little bit older. So, how much potential? That's the question. I mean, the guy has been a full-time defensive player for like a season. So how much potential is there? Seems to be a lot. Does he reach that? None of us know. But, I thought that theoretically, Greg, this pick is a good pick. Theoretically. And will it work out? Again, I hate to sound like I'm sitting on the fence. We just don't know. If you tell me this is a guy that can play the edge a little bit, he can move inside and get some bull rush for you. You can move him along the defensive line. He brings that athleticism. Then it's a fine pick by me.
Yeah, but that's Dietrich Wise. I mean, that's what Dietrich Wise does, and he's one of Belichick's favorite players. I just don't understand the point of the pick in that he's not going to play anytime soon. Like, if you told me Dietrich Wise's job is in danger, Bill Belichick wants to put Mac Jones's job in danger, okay, but right now, I mean, let's just take the team for this year in sub, and his best chances to get on the field in sub. It's Uche, it's Judon on the edge, it's Dietrich Wise inside, and it's Christian Barmore. Who's coming off the field to get Keion White snaps? I just have a hard time seeing it, so that's why I think it's a luxury pick. It's a lot of these picks are if the Patriots are in the AFC Championship game every year, and they're fighting just to get into the playoffs now.
All right, well, if we're going to go big picture, let's go big picture. Here's the thing. Here's what I think, okay? I think the Patriots did not love the wide receivers in this draft. I think the Patriots did not love the offensive tackles in this draft. And if you listen to all the draft pundits and analysts, whatever the hell they're worth, it was a very thin offensive tackle class. Once you got to Broderick Jones, that was pretty much it as far as guys who could really plug and play. So the Patriots didn't like Broderick Jones because he had some issues off the field. They weren't going to draft him. All the other tackles were off the board. They weren't going to move up, obviously. They had a cluster of players, whatever that is, okay? When you look at wide receiver, again, people would tell you, unless you were going to draft a guy somewhere in the 20s, this class was pretty thin. I don't have an issue with the lotto picks they took.
What about tight end?
Okay, tight end.
There was a whole run at the top of the second round that they missed out on, and instead they sat and took Keion White. That would be one of my big criticisms. And I do think you gotta identify a couple tackles. They weren't all bad in this draft. I mean, Carter Warren is a guy later who they passed on in sort of their fourth round, third round type of thing like that. The big criticism would be, I like a lot of their picks, okay? But I think they were really safe where they should have been able to identify a tackle and a tight end at least. And you throw that in the mix with Christian Gonzalez, you get a tackle, say, trade up, identify somebody in the third round. DeJuan Jones was out there. There's some medical questions about him. You trade up anywhere in the second round and get a tight end, and then you do Christian Gonzalez, a tight end. You get Keion White, you get Mapu or whatever, and then you get a developmental tackle. That's a knocked out of the park draft in terms of my mind. This was the Patriots playing it safe when we've seen them be aggressive for, especially defensive people in the past.
Okay, so again, we're off the rails with the plan. I'm throwing the plan out because now we're knee deep into this. Okay, we're just going to roll with this. If you see Sidy Sow, and I know how you feel about Sow, you don't believe he's a tackle. You believe he's a backup tackle at best. I saw you tweet about it. I get it. But it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. It's the guys that are in the room drafting, okay? If they believe Sidy Sow is a developmental tackle, then that's what they got. I don't have much of an issue of drafting a developmental tackle if you don't like the tackle class. Matthew Bergeron's tape, I heard many people say this, was not very impressive. DeJuan Jones, you brought him up. There's a reason why he fell to the fourth round. The guy's full of red flags from what I read. So again, if Sidy Sow works as a developmental tackle, how much did you lose? If you drafted 3 interior offensive linemen like I thought they did on Saturday, and Sidy Sow ended up not being capable of, if he's not capable of playing tackle, and they're totally wrong on the player, and Adrian Clem can't help him out, then you look back and you absolutely say, yeah, well, that was a big miss. The tight end point, I agree with your tight end point. But one of the things that, to me, there were a couple of things about this draft I didn't like, and one of them was not taking a tight end. This was a very deep tight end class. It was perfectly set up for them to find a guy who's young that they could work with, develop, and go into next year. And we'll get into this. There are major questions about this roster next season. I know people don't want to listen to it, because we're focused on this year. But when you look at offensive tackle, you look at tight end, and you could also look at wide receiver, we've got legitimate questions about those positions now. So I totally agree with you on that. However, if you look at this, Greg, and one of your criticisms, and I'm going to push back here because one of your criticisms is that this team hasn't drafted for the future. They haven't set themselves up to replace guys on the roster, right? And yes, they didn't do so much at tight end. And I agree with that. The issue is they had a lot of holes for the future. We've talked about that. The 2024 offseason, they've got a bunch of guys coming off the books. So they had a bunch of positions to look at. So if you tell me they got Christian Gonzalez, who's a bona fide cornerback one, if all things go well, okay. They got Keion White, which, again, it depends on their evaluation of the player. You don't think he can play edge. I've heard other people say he can't play edge. There are other people that have looked at him and said, well, he's young, he's going to develop, he's got athleticism. You could play him in the edge in Belichick's system. If you believe that, then you've got Judon getting older and his contract coming up soon. You've got Uche, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent, who I think is going to make a lot of money in the offseason. So they're looking at it and saying, we need somebody to replace those guys. So if we're going to sit there and we're going to bitch about them not being ready for certain positions, and then they draft guys who are theoretically going to replace those positions down the road, you can say the same thing about Mafi replacing Onwenu if Onwenu is not going to sign in New England. You need somebody who's good enough to back him up and be ready and plug him in at right guard. So Mafi's that guy. To me, it's Sidy Sow. If Sidy Sow works as a tackle, then the draft makes a little bit more sense to me. It makes actually much more sense to me. If Sow doesn't work as a tackle, then you drafted 3 interior offensive linemen and moved up for a kicker, and you're going to regret that.
Yeah, I mean, I largely agree with that, and I don't have a problem. And actually, like we've talked about, I'm very much in favor of, like, let's get succession plans started. My bigger problem has been they've whiffed on succession plans at big places. Like, yes. Offensive line is like one of the, you should be able to bring a guy in, and like they take these guys, 4th, 5th, 6th round. Okay, I mean, look at Onwenu. 6th round pick, like that's the ideal thing. But like, we're staring at a roster where they're losing 2 wide receivers. And granted, I told you I hated the wide receiver draft, and like I don't mind what they did at receiver, but like, you got 2 tight ends going into the final year of their deal. You have it's slipping my mind right now, but you have other things that are like a little bit pricier where you need to replace people, and like defensive line, which was probably one of the strongest units that they had on the team last year. Nobody's really going anywhere, anytime soon. I have a hard time seeing Judon going anywhere. Uche will, but I don't think this is that the Keion White pick was for that sort of thing. I just think that they're starting succession plans at places where you can do it a lot of different ways. Whereas the pricier, the offensive tackle and tight end are the 2 big ones that are glaring red needs a year from now, at least at the latest. And they didn't do anything there. And I just thought, if they would have done that and then done a lot of the other things, I would have said this draft was awesome. But they Bills just sort of chose to sit back and let the draft come to him, and he only moved up for a kicker. That's a little bit tougher for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it all depends on how you viewed this draft. If Belichick and Matt Groh were sitting there going, you know what, we don't love a lot of guys on this board. We just don't. We don't love the tackles, so we think Sidy Sow might have a shot at being a developmental guy we can get in the 4th round. You know what? I'll take a shot on Sidy Sow because I don't believe DeJuan Jones has what it takes to be an NFL player. The red flags. I don't see much difference. Again, this is them, not me, looking at it saying, okay, well, how much of a difference is there between Sidy Sow and this guy or that guy? And there seemed to be a lot of questions about a lot of the tackles that were past the top 4 or 5. So it kind of, to me, it makes sense. If you don't believe in those guys and you think that Sidy Sow might be the developmental tackle, then you pull the trigger on the guy that you feel comfortable with and you say, let's see if Adrian Clem can coach him up. I mean, I think one of the things, Greg, that's rather obvious coming from this draft, and we'll get back to pick by pick in a second, but the Patriots believe in their coaching staff. And that was a huge miss last year. But they are putting a lot on the plate of Adrian Clem, and they're putting a lot on the plate of Bill O'Brien. And they're saying, Here's what you have. Adrian Clem, you're going to have Trent Brown. You got to get him week in and week out, and you got to make sure that that guy is working his tail off and he's playing at the tippity top of his potential. You got Riley Reif. People think he's done. Can you get us one good year out of Riley Reif at right tackle? And if not, can you make something out of the, Reif, Anderson, McDermott, Kajust, Sau, Stuber, jambalaya that you have at right tackle? Can you get Cole Strange to play like a legit first round guard? Like, that's a lot on Adrian Clem. And for Bill O'Brien, it's, look, we had heard, Greg, that, and I'm sure you've heard many of the same things and said the same things on this podcast plenty of times. They don't necessarily feel like their wide receiver group is in any trouble. Now, contractually, they got a lot of guys coming up after this year, and that's a question they're going to have to answer. But as far as right now, I think they looked at this wide receiver class and said, again, not super impressed. We'll take a couple of late lotto picks on guys that might be able to bust out on potential that could be a fit for us. We're going to be fine for this year with what we have. We got Bill O'Brien coming in, and, Tyquan Thornton's going to have to step up. We invested. We moved up to draft that guy. We believe that guy is going to be a star for us. And now it's up to him and Bill O'Brien and Mac Jones to make that thing work. So I just think they didn't necessarily love the players at the positions that they needed, according to us. And so that kind of left them in free agency. They went out and got Anderson and Reif at tackle because they didn't love the tackle class. So they went out there and signed a couple of guys. Now, they didn't pay a ton of money for them. They obviously didn't want to go to the top of the free agency class at tackle, which is another decision you can second guess. But to me, they just weren't in love with a lot of guys in this draft. So they drafted dudes that they thought were athletic, projected to be possible studs, and guys that they really liked, whether it was a position that they needed right now or not. They said, these are the guys on our board, and we're not going to reach for other dudes that we just don't like. That's my read on the draft overall. All right, so round 3, this got a lot of people talking. Marte Mapu from Sac State.
Yeah, let's tell the people about that as soon as I tell them about FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I love FanDuel. I'm on it all the time. My Jack Campbell linebacker Patriots draft pick did not come in, but oh well. There's no better place to get in on all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Okay, so Marte Mapu. He was on my list. I like him. He's intriguing. Another guy sort of like Keion White that you're like, all right, well, what is he?
Yeah.
Is he more of a safety? Is he more of a linebacker? If he puts on weight, can he do that? Definitely intriguing to me. So I like the player. I like it's a sort of like a future bet. Now it'll make some people uneasy because there have been, at least the Patriots didn't take this guy in the second round, which they've done in past years. They've taken sort of a swing, whether it's Juwan Williams or Ross-I Dowling or like just some guys with that you're not really sure what they're going to be. And look, I think that he's a linebacker long term. We'll have to see. I think he's got a chance to, possibly be an impact guy, but I think that's a ways down the road. Coming from Sacramento State, we need Nick to go out there and go scout him, go into the film room and watch all his film and report back to us. But I think it's a ways down the road. He's a project, a little early for a project, but I don't have a huge problem, with the pick and the player itself. I'm intrigued by him.
I've been screaming from the mountaintop, and you have as well, to add legit athleticism and speed to this defense. And I think the Patriots have actually done a pretty damn good job of that the last couple of years. And this continued that. Like, again, all of this is theoretical. All of this is hypothetical. But Keion White, damn good athlete. Mapu, damn good athlete. Christian Gonzalez, damn good athlete. All those guys, have some speed at their positions. White doesn't play as fast as you hoped he would. Maybe he'll figure that out. But they added athleticism and speed to this defense. The question I have about Mapu is, he's like 220 pounds. Now, to me, I think he's the perfect kind of guy, Greg, that you and I have discussed. The inside linebacker, fly around the field, make plays. Daniel Jeremiah, who I respect the hell out of, he tweeted out that Mapu is, his favorite player in this draft. He thinks he could be the best playmaker in this draft. Will Bill actually play him at linebacker? I don't know. Will he live with that, the 225-pound guy, or is he going to still roll out the Jawan Bentleys and the Tavais of the world?
Right.
That's something I don't know. If Gerard Mayo takes over and he's like, yeah, we got to get Mapu's playmaking and speed on the field, let's do this, then we're talking about somebody else. So I'm just interested to see how they handle Mapu. Will they, he could be just strictly a special teams guy this year. And according to reports, they did try to trade out of this spot. They liked Mapu. The feeling I got from what I read and what I've heard is they love Mapu, and Bill especially loves Mapu. But I don't think they believed that they needed to draft him where they got him at 76. I think they tried to trade down. Nothing worked. And they said, let's just pick the guy we love. And that's where they settled. All right, let's group together the offensive linemen, since we hit Sowell a little bit and we hit Mafi a little bit. But Jake Andrews goes in round 4 at 107. He is a center from Troy. We've got Sidy Sow, who we discussed, who's a guard, who they reportedly, according to our friend Burt Breer, will try at tackle. He was picked in round 4 as well at 117. And then they came back at round 5 and drafted Antonio Mafi, who people seem to be much higher on than the other two guys. But they end up with Andrew, Sow, and Mafi. Just kind of your thoughts, Greg, about the interior offensive line, and especially Sow, if he's a tackle, if you think he has any chance of being a tackle.
Yeah, I like the film on Jake Andrews. I think he's definitely a center first with some, guard versatility. It's a little puzzling to me because I thought they liked Cody Rusey, who was an undrafted free agent who made the team and was on the team the whole time as sort of the next center. So that makes this pick a little bit puzzling. But, I've been asking for a developmental center for a while, and he looks good on paper. I'm fine with that. Part of this discussion on this pick should be, I heard from teams that the Patriots were looking to move up in the 4th round. Let's see, Blake Freeland, the Colts took the developmental tackle right in front of their Andrews pick. Yep. Keely Ringo went to the cornerback from Georgia, who was on a lot of lists, went right there. The Raiders and McDaniels took, there was a whole run on, Saldiveri, the top pick in the 4th round, as a guard sort of tackle guy. So, where could they have been trading up? Again, they had 3 4th-round picks that they used. Even before, who was it? The Ryland pick at kicker, DeJuan Jones, the tackle who we talked about, went. So you wonder what sort of went on in that round. Were they going to take Freeland and then Andrews, but then the Colts took him, and then they just were like, well, let's just draft the best guy on our board, who's Andrews. I don't mind the picks. I think Andrews has a chance to replace David Andrews down the road. He has 2 years left on his contract. I think Sow, to me, when I watch his film, and I haven't watched a ton of it, to me, looks a lot like Cam Fleming, which doesn't really excite me. I think he's a cross between Fleming and Owenu, and I do think he's more of a guard. I think tackle is a reach on Sow. I think Mafi is definitely a guard and definitely has a chance to be a good player. I liked some of his film. He moves really well. He pulls really well. So, in a vacuum, I like the guys that they got, for down the road, and, a position group that I didn't think needed a lot of attention and got 3 picks all of a sudden in a row.
I agree with a lot of what you said. To me, again, we hit this a little bit earlier. A lot rides on Sal. If you tell me this offensive tackle attempt, quote unquote, works out, and he's somebody who could be molded into a pretty good tackle, then you look back and it makes all the sense in the world because Jake Andrews, as you said, is the backup of David Andrews. David's had a couple of concussion issues. He's in his 30s now. His contract's coming up in a couple of years. Mafi, I think, is on renew, insurance. I think, when you look at that contract situation, if he prices himself out, then the Patriots are looking for somebody who they might be able to plug and play. And maybe with a year under his belt, Mafi is that guy at right guard. So that makes sense. It really is about Sidy Sow. If Sow ends up being a guard, then you look back and to me, spending 3 picks on interior offensive linemen when you had some other needs, that's a miss. So it's really going to rely on Sow. All right, let's get to the kicker now. Chad Ryland. The Patriots moved up. They moved up in round 4 and selected with the 10th pick in that round, 112th overall, Chad Ryland, Greg.
Yeah, the kickers, whatever, sort of the way I deal with them during the special teams during the season. Like, I trust those guys on that. What I can tell you is I'm not giving them bonus points for if they get a decent kicker and punter because they were only in this position because they screwed up on Rohrwasser and whatever happened with Jake Bailey. I mean, these are self-inflicted wounds that they are correcting. And I can tell you one thing, Nick, though, and I heard this. Phil Perry, I heard him on his podcast say that there are people, I think, on the team who think like it's not out of the possibility that Nick Folk and Ryland are both on the roster this year. So that Folk would handle field goals and Ryland would handle kickoffs. If that happens and you trade it up in the 4th round after using a 5th on Rohrwasser a couple years ago, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Like Ryland, if he better be their opening day kicker and he better be good because I'm getting sick of this crap with the special teams and the kickers and the punters. Like freaking get it right. I thought this is Bill's wheelhouse. And now we're just like throwing crap up against the wall. So Ryland better kick for them. If he does, fine. I won't mention him again.
Very unpredictable position to draft. Moving up in the 4th round to draft one. You better hit on him. And I agree with you. If Ryland is not kicking off and kicking field goals for this team, I'm going to move some furniture in a very hasty way in my house because that would be gosh damn ridiculous that you moved up in the 4th round to get a guy who's going to do kickoffs for you. Outrageous, out freaking outrageous. It would. I don't even want to think about it. Let's group some guys together again. Round 6. Again, I don't think that the Patriots were high on the wide receiver class. That's rather obvious. They decided to take some swings. And for me, I absolutely loved, and it's relatively speaking, it's the 6th round. Both of these guys might not make the team. But I loved the philosophy, and I loved the players they brought in. Kayshon Boutte, who is a wide receiver at LSU. You've heard a lot about him, I'm sure, as you Patriots fans have scoured through podcasts. He was projected as a 1st-round pick if you go back 12 months ago. He had some big-time numbers early on in his LSU career. Did not necessarily get along with Brian Kelly early on, which is not a shocker. I'm not saying it's Brian Kelly's fault, but as we know, Brian Kelly has been known to rub some players the wrong way. He's not the easiest guy to play for. So there was a little bit of friction there. Boutte also had some injury issues, but potentially this guy, again, if he takes his job seriously and he says to himself, man, I fell to the 6th round, I have to get my ass in gear. I think the Patriots could have found a diamond in round 6. And then Demarion Douglas, Greg, I know he's a guy that I believe that you liked. He was picked at 210 overall, another wide receiver out of Liberty, my old stomping grounds in Virginia. And he's kind of a water bug, as they say. He's a slot receiver, super quick, and actually played pretty well. People will say, oh, Liberty, level of competition. He played pretty well when the level of competition also stepped up. He stepped up. So I actually, again, relatively speaking, I love the Boutte and Douglas picks.
Yeah, I mean, considering where they drafted Boutte, I'm fine with the pick. He is a guy who, in a lot of ways, you look at it and you're just like, okay, he's got a chance to hit. I mean, it's a lottery ticket, and I'm fine with that. I just want people to know that there, and I'm not going to get into it because I don't really care. And they drafted him in the 6th round. I mean, it'd be different if they put resources into him. but there are a lot of red flags on this guy. I would say that probably the majority of the NFL didn't want to touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. Now, I don't think he's a danger or anything like that. I just think people in the league just think that he has no chance to get us head on straight and, whatever. And we've seen guys like this all the time. It's, reminds me of some picks and some signings that the Dolphins used to make back in the day when I picked them. But, you take a swing and you hope that Troy Brown or somebody in the building can, keep him out of trouble and focused on what he's doing. And definitely he's got a chance to be he has this young man has an opportunity to be a really good football player in this league. We'll see whether he takes advantage of it. Douglas, I love the pick. How long have I been asking for, a jitterbug, water bug type of guy? This is this guy. He's a little slight, which is why you got him so late, but I love him. He's got the stop, start ability, jump cuts, like all that stuff. Like, I'm looking forward to watching him on the field. I think he's got, a decent chance to make this team. One side note to this, I'm probably a little bit disappointed because considering the Christian Gonzalez pick and the dominoes that we think are going to go down at cornerback with Jonathan Jones re-signed. I mean, ideally it should be Gonzalez, Jack Jones, and Jonathan Jones as your top cornerback. And I was kind of getting a little excited for Marcus Jones to move more full-time to offense, which still could happen when it comes to the roster crunch and numbers and things like that. But to me, Demarion Douglas would be more of a offensive player and take Marcus Jones away from offense. They're that same type of player. And then, the last couple picks, Ameer Speed and Isiah Bolden, tradey guys, big guys, cornerbacks, special teams sort of guys. Again, lottery tickets that, if one pays off, that's a good pick. But at least they're, with all these guys in the 6th and 7th round, at least they're taking risks on guys with athletic upside who are tradey, who have a chance to be difference makers, if the lottery ticket hits, where in the years past, they just used to take all right, let me take a special teams, like a long snapper or up guy or something like that, where you're just like, this guy has no chance. At least these guys have some semblance of a chance to maybe be a player at some point.
I agree with you. Before we get to you and Belichick, because we got a couple more things to hit quickly, let's tell the fine people about Indeed.
If you're a business owner that likes to jump to the news highlights, you'll love Indeed. With Indeed, you'll connect with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. When you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. I love it. I look through there. We've been looking for people over at BSJ. I love how quick it is. I can dial things down and boom, it's right there. Candidates you invite to apply through Indeed Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in a search, according to U.S. Indeed data. With Indeed matching, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Boom! It's hiring at warp speed. Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor a job and will match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you'll only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/Bedard to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/Bedard. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application. Pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Indeed.com. And I'll tell you, I was lying down, getting ready to go to bed, and I threw on Bill Belichick's post press conference. And I'm listening to Bill just do usual Bill through the whole presser, not giving anybody anything. Then I heard my guy Greg. And my guy Greg popped on. And he pressed Belichick on Mac Jones. And Greg, I'm going to tell you, I give you a lot of credit because being in the media, I watched this and I felt a twinge of being uncomfortable, but you did what needed to be done. And you kept pressing Belichick on Mac Jones, whether or not he's his guy. And you went back to what Belichick had said before the season last summer about Mac. And do you feel the same way about him? And is he your guy? Is he your quarterback? I thought it was really good work by you. I thought it was a great line of questioning. I thought you somewhat cornered Bill into saying stuff that he doesn't necessarily want to say. And Belichick, for the first time in a while, actually mentioned Mac by name. And he said that absolutely he feels the same way about Mac that he felt last summer. Just your thoughts being in that moment and Bill's reaction.
Yeah, I just some real quick background. So the Patriots have been screwing around with us in the media for for a while, but a lot recently. Where like for example, on I think Wednesday night at like 10:30, we got information that before the second round of the draft, assistants were going to be able to interview. When a lot of stuff was going on, the Bruins, the draft, all this stuff, and all of a sudden we just got assistant coaches, and there was some loophole that they found where it's like, oh, we can do it again right now when not a lot of people are going to care to be here or get much attention, and then we don't have to make assistants available anytime soon. So that was that, and then all of a sudden during the draft that night, so it was Friday. This was Friday night with Bill. All of a sudden, during the middle of the second and third round, we got an email saying Bill Belichick is going to be available tonight after the draft, not his normal Sunday. Normally, we get Bill on Sunday. The draft's over. Maybe ask a couple draft picks, state of the team type of thing. And the Patriots made a last-minute change to make Bill available on Friday night, which I just think was wrong and a little sneaky on their part. And so, look, I didn't want to ask that question there. I wanted to ask more draft pick questions, probably, of grow. But if that's the only time we're going to get Bill anytime soon, like he needed to be asked. And I'm sick of hearing on Sports Talk Radio about all this supposition about what he's not mentioning Mac by name and these reports are out there and whatever. And I just wanted to try to get him cornered as much as possible to give us a real answer. And now, look, you can parse it. And, did he give us, quote unquote, real answers? I don't know. But I think in Belichick speak, I think basically what we heard was I still really like Mac. Of course, this happened after he didn't take a quarterback in the first three rounds of the draft. So he doesn't really have a choice at this point. I'll readily admit that. But I think what we heard was he still likes Mac. He's not really happy about what happened last year. But he is the incumbent starter right now. And it's his job right now. And until he loses it or Bailey Zappi or somebody else wins it, that's where they are right now.
Yeah, I thought it was great stuff. I did, and I agree with you. The timing wasn't perfect, but you prefaced your questions with that and said, hey, look, I know this isn't the best timing, whatever you said, but you explained why you were asking the questions when you were asking the questions. And I thought it was a fair preface to kind of set everything up. So, I agree with you. We still have some meat left on the bone, but I got to run. Yep. I think we can save some of this stuff for next week. We hammered the draft today. I want to remind you that this episode of the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles is brought to you by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. You can sign up now at FanDuel.com/Boston and claim your $200 bonus. We still have to talk about the Patriots and whether or not they move the needle in the division with this offseason. We could talk about whether or not they were aggressive enough in this draft for our liking and a whole lot more. But we gave you some good information here on the draft. We'll be back next time to answer some of those questions, and I'm sure a heck of a lot more. He's Greg. I'm Nick. Everybody be well. Enjoy yourself and be healthy and safe.